Hello everybody, good morning. Today is Wednesday and I've got a couple different messages for you. So, message one, this is about what Miss Laura talked about yesterday. She went on a tree hunt and she went walking outside and it was actually raining in her video, so she did a tree hunt in the rain. But you can wait until it's nicer weather out. But she was wondering, what do you notice when you go on a tree hunt? When Miss Laura went on hers, she was looking at different kinds of trees, and she talked about coniferous trees and deciduous trees. And that means that some trees keep their needles and cones that stay green all winter, and some of those trees, they have leaves, and we know those leaves will turn different colors in the fall and then fall off in the winter. So there's different kinds of trees, but she actually knew the names of some of the trees that were around her house too. So sometimes what you can do is look at the tree's leaves or the kind of bark it has on the trunk. And you could ask a grown-up to help you maybe look to see what kind of tree it is, maybe on the internet, and maybe you have a book about trees, and you can try to find out the names of the different kinds of trees near your house, or maybe when you're going on a walk. So there's a lot of different things you can notice about trees if you go out there and look at them, even different animals that are living in the trees. So I hope you have a chance to try it. Probably especially if it's not raining, but maybe it's more fun in the rain. You could take your umbrella and go for a walk, so you'll have to see. For message two, I've been talking a lot about rocks because you might remember in my last video I talked about how summer rocks, and I love summer, but we also know the word rocks means something else, like the little hard stones. So I thought, you know what, let's learn some facts about rocks. So first I drew a picture of the earth where we live because I found out that underneath all the parts of the earth, so under all the land and under all the water, there's a whole big layer of rocks called the crust. So even though, like, if you look out your window, you might see grass or you might see a sidewalk or a road, and we see those things because it's on the surface, on the top. But if you could pretend that you could dig through all of it and dig and go down, you would find a layer of earth called the crust, or just a ton of rocks. Even under all the water, if you could take all the water out of the ocean or all the water out of a lake, under all that water, there's more rock. So there's rocks everywhere. We just can't always see them all the time. But our whole earth is covered in rock called a crust. And then there's some different ways that rocks are made, actually. So I drew a picture of a volcano because there's something special that comes out of a volcano. Magma or lava comes out of a volcano sometimes if it's an active volcano. And when it's coming out, it's really hot and it kind of flows kind of like water, and it's liquid and you don't want to touch it. But it will eventually cool down, and when it's cooling down, it will turn hard. And that is a special kind of rock. So magma or lava coming out of volcanoes can make rocks. And one other way that you can make rock is if you have a bunch of tiny little pieces of like material or sediment, just like could be tiny little pieces of rock or tiny little pieces of sand or other materials. And if they get squished down, so I drew a hand pretending to push, but really we aren't strong enough to squish down pieces of sand into a rock, but it needs a lot of pushing and squishing down, and all these tiny little pieces can be squished down into another kind of rock. And sometimes you can see those kinds of rocks have layers of different colors or stripes almost because of all the different kinds of pieces that got squished together. So that's a couple different ways about how rocks are made and where we can find rocks all over the planet, all over Earth, right? Yeah, so for message three, I thought we could talk some more about rocks because summer rocks. I love summer. It's the best. It's awesome. But there are other things you can do with rocks. So in my last video, I showed you how you could paint on rocks. But I have two other things that you can do with rocks as well. So I'm wondering, can you build with rocks? So if you go outside and you find some rocks, can you stack them up? How many can you stack up? Might be a little bit trickier than you think. I wonder if you can try that. And another thing you can do with just one rock is a special game called hopscotch. And maybe you've seen this before. Usually when people play this game hopscotch, you go outside and you find a space on sidewalk, not on the street, on sidewalk, and you use a piece of chalk and you draw these special boxes. First one, and then two, and then another one, and then two. And sometimes people like to write numbers in them, so I did. I wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you play a special jumping game. But sometimes people play with a rock, and they first, before they start, they're standing up here over by number 1, they gently toss the rock onto their drawing, and then they have to hop, 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 hop to go get the rock and pick it up while they're hopping and then finish all the way to the end. So I actually made a video yesterday showing how I build with rocks and how I play this hopscotch game. So here's that video for you. Hello! So we're going to talk about 2 other things you can do with rocks, because some are rocks and sometimes you find lots of rocks laying around. So I'm going to show you first on how you can build with rocks, and then I'll show you second how you can play a game called hopscotch with rocks. So I'm going to turn my camera around. Sometimes when you're going on walks or maybe in your yard, you find a lot of rocks, and they're not always together like this, but maybe if you go on a walk, you decide to pick some up while you're going, and then you bring them home, or maybe you stop somewhere on a sidewalk. But the rocks are cool because they have so many different shapes. Some are kind of bigger, but they might have a flat side on them, so you can kind of play around with that. Some are even more flat or longer. You know, a lot of different kinds of shapes. They're just more like a square side on this one. So, but what you can do is see, can you stack the rocks on top of each other? Can you make a pile of rocks? Like, how is that going to work for you? I'm gonna see. Ooh, I got 1, 2. What else? Let's see. Ooh, this one is kind of like broken off, so it's really nice and flat. I wonder if that one will balance on top. Yep, so now I have 1, 2, 3. Let's try another one. What do we think? Ooh, maybe I'll try this one. Will this one balance? Oh no, I got to 3, and when I tried to add the 4th one, it fell down. I wonder how many rocks you can stack on top of each other. Or can you make your tower a little bit different? It doesn't always have to be one big pile going straight up. Maybe you can build it with more rocks on the bottom. Oh, see, that one just didn't want to stay, so then I'll have to try something else with it. How else can I add these rocks to make them stay? See, now I have a different kind of rock pile, and there's more rocks in this pile. Whoa, a bunch of them. So I wonder what you can build with rocks that you might find. That's something you can do if you find rocks while you're out walking, or maybe in your yard. Something you can try, and then I'm going to put them back. There we go. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to do a game with hopscotch. So over here I actually drew a hopscotch already. So you take some chalk on the ground and you draw squares. Like I have one square down here, and I actually wrote the number 1 on it. And I'm going to put my foot by it so you can see my whole foot fits inside the square. So it needs to be big enough for you to step in. So you can play hopscotch just like this, and you can make it longer. I just went up to the number 10, but you can make it longer if you want to. And I did 1 square, 2 squares, 1 square, 2 squares, 1 square, 2 squares, 1 square. But you can change it up if you want to. But here's the thing. When there's 1 square, you can only put 1 foot in. And then when there's 2, you switch to double feet like that. So you're going to have to do some jumping and balancing. So I'm going to go through one time and show you how I jump and balance with 1 foot, 2 feet. 1 foot, 2 feet. 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 foot. And you can try doing it, you know, this foot or this foot. You can change it up. But now here's another way you can play. Find 1 rock. I'm going to pick this one because it has a lot of colors on it. I think it'll be easy for us to see. So now what you do is you try to gently throw the rock and try to see if it will land inside one of the squares, and then I'll show you what you do. So I'm going to do a gentle throw. Ooh, it landed right next to the 7, way over there. I'm still gonna play. So now what I have to do is do my hopscotch with my jumping feet. But when I get to the square by the rock, I have to stop, bend down, pick up the rock, and then keep going. And it's gonna be tricky because you might remember, how many feet do I get to use when there's one square by itself? Just one, so I'm gonna have to balance on 1 foot to pick up the rock. So here we go. 1 foot, 2 feet. 1 foot, 2 feet. 1 foot, balance, don't fall over. Bend down, pick up the rock. Oh, yep, still on 1 foot. Ooh, that's hard. Okay, 2 feet, 1 foot. Haha, done. And I got the rock. And then you can go back and play again. Maybe it will land on a different number or a different square, and you can try and see how it's working for you. So those are some other things you can do with rocks. I hope you get a chance to try it, and I'll see you again on Friday. Bye, everybody.